Hey everyone. I am a big fan of Heraclitus, philosopher out of Ephesus in the pre-Socratic period. I have a copy of his fragments in front of me, and I'm going to read out all of the fragments that we have access to, which will be a whole lot of fun, and we'll have access to them for the future. Fragment 1. Though this word is true evermore, yet men are as unable to understand it when they hear it for the first time, as before they have heard it at all. For though all things come to pass in accordance with this word, men seem as if they had no experience of them. When they make trial of words and deeds, such as I set forth, dividing each thing according to its kind, and showing how it is what it is. But other men know not what they are doing when awake, even as they forget what they do in sleep. Fragment 2. Though the logos is common, the many live as if they had a wisdom of their own. Fragment 3. The sun is the width of a human foot. Fragment 4. If happiness consisted in the pleasures of the body, we should call oxen happy whenever they come across bitter vetch to eat. Fragment 5. The vainly purify themselves by defiling themselves with blood, just as if one who had stepped into mud were to wash his feet in mud. And they pray to these images, as if one were to talk to a man's house, knowing not what gods or heroes are. Fragment 6. The sun, as Heraclitus says, is new every day. Fragment 7. If all things were turned to smoke, the nostrils would distinguish them. Fragment 8. What opposes unites, and the finest attunement stems from things bearing in opposite directions, and all things come about by strife. Fragment 9. For a horse, a dog, and a human being have different pleasures. Asses prefer straw to gold, since asses find food sweeter than gold. Fragment 10. Things whole and not whole, what is drawn together and what is drawn asunder, the harmonious and the discordant. The one is made up of all things, and all things issue from the one. Fragment 11. Every beast is driven to pasture with a blow. Fragment 12. On those who enter the same rivers, ever different waters flow. Fragment 13. Pigs delight in the mire more than in clean water. Fragment 14. The mysteries practiced among men are unholy mysteries. Fragment 15. For if it were not to Dionysus that they made a procession and sang this shameful phallic hymn, they would be acting most shamelessly. But Hades is the same as Dionysus, in whose honor they go mad and rave. Fragment 16. How can one hide from that which never sets? Fragment 17. The many do not take heed of such things as they meet with, nor do they recognize them when they are taught, though they think they do. Fragment 18. If you do not expect the unexpected, you will not find it, for it is hard to be sought out and difficult. Fragment 19. Knowing not how to listen, they do not know how to speak. Fragment 20. When they are born, they wish to live and meet their dooms, or rather to rest, and they leave children behind them to meet with their dooms in turn. Fragment 21. All the things we see when awake are death, even as all we see in slumber are sleep. Fragment 22. Those who seek gold dig up much earth and find a little. Fragment 23. They would not have known the name of justice if these things were not. Fragment 24. Gods and men honor those who are slain by Ares. Fragment 25. Greater deaths win greater portions. Fragment 26. Man kindles a light for himself in the nighttime, when he has died but is alive. The sleeper, whose vision has been put out, lights up from the dead. He that is awake lights up from the sleeping. Fragment 27. There awaits men when they die such things as they look not for nor dream of. Fragment 28. The most esteemed of them knows, holds fast to, fancies. Justice shall overtake the artificer of lies and the false witnesses. Fragment 29. For even the best of them choose one thing above all others, immortal glory among mortals, while most of them are glutted like beasts. Fragment 30. This world, which is the same for all, no one of gods or men has made. But it always was, is, and will be an ever-living fire, with measures of it kindling and measures going out. Fragment 31. The transformations of fire. First, sea, and of the sea, half is earth, half whirlwind. Sea pours out and is measured by the same amount as before it became earth. The wise is only one. It is unwilling and willing to be called the name of Zeus. Fragment 33. And it is law, too, to obey the counsel of one. Fragment 34. Hearing they do not understand, like the deaf. Present, they are absent. Fragment 35. Men that love wisdom must be inquirers into very many things indeed. Fragment 36. For it is death to souls to become water, and death to water to become earth. But water comes from earth, and from water, soul. Fragment 37. Swine washed in the mire, the barnyard fowls in the dust. Fragment 38. Thales, according to some, seems to have been the first student of astronomy, a fact that both Heraclitus and Democritus bear witness to. In Priene lived Bias, son of Teudemus, who is of more account than the rest. Fragment 40. The learning of many things does not teach understanding. Otherwise, it would have been Hesiod and Pythagoras, and again Xenophon and Heraclitus. Fragment 41. Wisdom is one thing. It is to know the thought by which all things are steered through all things. Fragment 42. Homer deserves to be taken out of the games and beaten with the stick, and Archiachus too. Fragment 43. Wantonness needs putting out, even more than a house on fire. Fragment 44. The people must fight for its laws as for its walls. Fragment 46. Thinking is a sacred disease, and sight is deceptive. Fragment 47. Let us not conjecture randomly about the most important things. Fragment 48. Bow. The bow's name is life, though its work is death. Fragment 49. One is 10,000 to me, if he be the best. Fragment 50. It is wise to hearken, not to me, but to my word, and to confess that all things are one. Fragment 51. Men do not know how what is at variance agrees with itself. It is an attunement of opposite tension, like that of the bow and the lyre. Fragment 52. Time is a child at play, moving pieces in a board game. The kingly power is a child's. Fragment 53. War is the father of all and the king of all. And some he has made gods, and some men, some bond and some free. Fragment 54. The unseen harmony is better than the visible. Fragment 55. The things that can be seen, heard, and learned are what I prize the most. Fragment 56. Men are deceived in their knowledge of things that are manifest, even as Homer, who is the wisest of all the Greeks, for he was even deceived by boys killing lice when they said to him, "What we have seen and grasped, these we leave behind, whereas what we cannot see and grasp, these we carry away." Fragment 57. Hesiod is most men's teacher. Men think he knew very many things. A man who did not know day or night. They are one. Fragment 58. Physicians who cut, burn, stab, and rack the sick demand a fee for it, which they do not deserve. Fragment 59. The straight and the crooked path of the fuller's comb is one and the same. Fragment 60. The way up and the way down is one and the same. Fragment 61. The sea is the purest and the impurest water. Fish can drink it, and it is good for them. To men it is undrinkable and destructive. Fragments 62 and 63. Mortals, immortals, immortals, mortals. The one living the other's death, and dying the other's life. Fragment 64. It is the thunderbolt that steers the course of all things. Fragment 65. Fire is want and surfeit. Fragment 66. Fire, in its advance, will judge and convict all things. Fragment 67. God is day and night, winter and summer, war and peace, surfeit and hunger. But he takes various shapes, just as fire, when it is mingled with spices, is named according to the savor of each. Fragment 68. On this account also, they are very properly called by Heraclitus remedies, as healing things of a dreadful nature and saving souls from calamities, with which the realms of generation are replete. Fragment 69. We must admit, therefore, there are twofold species of sacrifices. One kind, indeed, pertaining to men who are entirely purified, which, as Heraclitus says, rarely happens to one man, or certainly easily to be numbered few of mankind. Fragment 70. Human opinions are children's toys. Fragment 71. Think too of him who forgets where the way leads. Fragment 72. Most are at odds with that which they most constantly associate. They account which governs the universe, and what they meet with every day seems foreign to them. Fragment 73. We ought not act and speak as if we were asleep. Fragment 74. We ought not behave like children who learn from their parents. Fragment 75. Those who are asleep are fellow workers in what goes on in the world. Fragment 76. The death of fire is the birth of air, and the death of air is the birth of water. Fragment 77. It is pleasure to souls to become moist. Fragment 78. The way of man has no wisdom, but that of the gods has. Fragment 79. Man is called a baby by God, even as a child is called a baby by man. Fragment 80. We must know that war is common to all, and strife is justice, and that all things come into being through strife necessarily. Fragment 81. The sciences introduce no reasoning which is aimed to deceive, but all the principle of the rhetoricians are aimed exclusively at that, and according to Heraclitus, rhetoric is the prince of liars. Fragment 82. The most handsome of apes is ugly in comparison with the human. Fragment 73. The wisest of men, in contrast to God, appears as an ape in wisdom and beauty, and all things. Fragment 84. Change reposes, and that is his weariness, to keep toiling at the same things, and always beginning again. Fragment 85. It is hard to fight with one's heart's desire. Whatever it wishes to get, it purchases at the cost of the soul. Fragment 86. According to Heraclitus, the greater part of things divine escape recognition due to lack of confidence. Fragment 87. The fool is fluttered at every word. Fragment 88. It is the same thing in us that is quick and dead, awake and asleep, young and old. The former are shifted and become the latter, and the latter in turn are shifted and become the former. Fragment 89. The waking have one common world, but the sleeping turn aside into a world of their own. Fragment 90. All things are an interchange for fire, and fire for all things, just like goods for gold and gold for goods. Fragment 91. You cannot step twice into the same rivers. Fragment 92. And the Sibyl, with raving lips and uttering things mirthless, unbedizened, and unperfumed, reaches over 1,000 years with her voice, thanks to the gods in her. Fragment 93. The Lord, whose is the oracle at Delphi, neither utters nor hides its meaning, but shows it by a sign. Fragment 94. The sun will not overstep his measures. If he does, the Erinyes, the handmaids of justice, will find him out. Fragment 95. It is best to hide folly. Fragment 96. Corpses are more fit to be cast out than dung. Fragment 97. Dogs bark at everyone they do not recognize. Fragment 98. Souls smell in Hades. Fragment 99. If there were no sun, it would be night. Fragment 100. The cycles. Of these the sun is the commander and overseer, for determining the changes in the seasons, which carry all things. Fragment 101. I dived into myself. Fragment 102. To God, all things are fair and good and just, but men hold some things wrong and some right. Fragment 103. Concerning the circumference of a circle, the beginning and end are common. Fragment 104. For what thought or wisdom have they? They follow the poets and take the crowds as their teacher, knowing not the many are bad and the few good. Fragment 105. Heraclitus said that Homer was an astronomer. Fragment 106. Heraclitus attacked Hesiod for making some days good and other days bad, because he did not recognize the nature of every day is one. Fragment 107. Eyes and ears are bad witnesses to men who have barbarian souls. Fragment 108. Of all whose discourses I have heard, there is not one who attains to recognize what is wise, set apart from all. Fragment 109. It is better to conceal ignorance than to expose it. Fragment 110. It is no good for men to get all they wish to get. Fragment 111. It is sickness that makes health pleasant and good. Hunger, satiety, weariness, rest. Fragment 112. Thinking well is the greatest excellent, and wisdom is to act and speak what is true, perceiving things according to their nature. Fragment 113. Thought is common to all. Fragment 114. Those who speak with understanding must hold fast to what is common to all, as a city holds fast to its law, and even more strongly. For all human laws are fed by the Divine One. It prevails as much as it will, and suffices for all things, with something to spare. Fragment 115. The logos of the soul is increasing itself. Fragment 116. Recognizing oneself and being of a sound mind are for all men. Fragment 117. A dry gleam of light is the wisest and best soul. Fragment 118. Heraclitus said that a man's character is his fate. Fragment 119. The limit of dawn and evening are the bear, and the opposite the bear, the guardian of bright Zeus. Fragment 120. The Ephesians would do well to hang themselves, every grown man of them, and leave the city to beardless lads. For they have cast out Hermodorus, the best among them, saying, We will have none who is the best among us. If there be any such, let him be so elsewhere, and among others. Fragment 121. Nature loves to hide. Fragment 122. The most beautiful universe is a pouring out of sweepings at random. Fragment 123. Even the barley drink separates, if it is not stirred. And finally, Fragment 124. Cold things become warm, and what is warm cools, what is wet dries, and the parched is moistened. Thanks for listening. If anyone's still sticking around, I am planning to do a lot more work with these fragments. I think that there's a lot of really interesting philosophy that can be mined out of here. It isn't so straightforward like a lot of other work where all the work is really done for you. You really have to pull out what all of this kind of means and construct a philosophy out of the bits of information that we have, because this is all that's left to us through the course of history. So I'm pretty excited. I've been explicating my book, and I am planning to go and talk a lot more about all the different elements of the philosophy that I can pull out of here, and perhaps talk to some people who know better than I do. So it'll be exciting, and there's a lot more to come.